It's Warhol, actually.
What did I say?
Hole. It's hole. As in holes. What? Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol. Like hole.
What you just heard was the introduction to the song Andy Warhol from David Bowie's 1971 album Hunky Dory. In it, Bowie corrects the studio manager on how to pronounce the American pop artist's last name. Some pronounce it Varhola, some Warhol, some Warhola, some Warhol, as in hole, but I always called it Warhol, as in U-Haul. My name is John Warhol, and the American pop art icon is my great-uncle. Though I never got to meet him, I know him not only through his art and documentaries and songs about him, but through family stories that you couldn't find in a biography. I'm going to share my perspective of what it's like to grow up knowing I'm related to Andy, as well as stories about him as told by my dad John and my uncle Mark. This is Growing Up Warhol.
Andy Warhol looks a scream, hang him on my wall. Andy Warhol, silver screen, can't tell them apart at all.
Where did Picasso come from? There's no Michelangelo coming from Pittsburgh. If art is the tip of the iceberg, I'm the part sinking below.
As far back as I can remember, even before I knew or cared who Andy was, teachers, doctors, friends' parents, and especially art majors would bombard me with a list of questions once they heard my last name. Are you really related? Yes. Have you ever met him? No. He died in 87, I was born in 91. Do you have any of his paintings? No. You kind of look like him, if you say so. That's cool that you're related, I guess. For most of my life, I didn't have an understanding of Andy's importance or the origins of the Warhol family line. It wasn't until recently, when I sat down with my father John and Uncle Mark, that I developed an appreciation for the family name and history. To better understand Andy, and Warhols in general, you must first know the name's origin and where our people come from.
Warhols are unnatural. We're not a natural thing.
Warhol is a catch-all phrase meaning argumentative or quarrelsome person.
Warhol is a Polish word meaning an argumentative person, a squabbler, a pain in the ass, a just somebody who you just really don't want to be around.
It's in the blood. There's just a certain lack of desire to socialize that seems to be in the Warhol thing. There's a one Warhol painting where it's Andy Warhol's face and it's camouflage.
Yeah.
I always thought that was sort of a real self-portrait, not much of Andy, but of just of Warhols in general. This died of sort of this desire to kind of disappear.
But why Andy? What makes him so important? Until recently, I haven't been able to appreciate the fact that Andy is the foremost representative of American pop art. His simple yet iconic images of everyday objects, including Campbell's soup cans, bananas, Brillo boxes, and Coca-Cola bottles, as well as portraits of famous figures like Elvis, Jackie Kennedy, and Marilyn Monroe, started a debate that continues today about what art is. Andy is also famous for the New York scene in the mid-late 60s. This scene revolved around his work studio known as The Factory, and his multimedia events known as the Exploding Plastic Inevitable that combined the music of influential rock group The Velvet Underground and projected movies.
And what costume shall the poor girl wear to all tomorrow's parties?
Well, we knew him as well as any man. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say we knew him as well as anybody,
yeah.
because he was not an easy man to know. I think I would say that when people would ask. Did you know him? I would say I knew him as well as anybody, and he's not an easy man to know.
Yeah.
He was able to use the Warhol reserve to the best effect.
Reticence. He worked the Warhol.
Yeah, he took that negative and he was able to create a whole persona around it, and it actually was fascinating in that way to see him so passive and to respond to things in that way. And it was like he was doing a Warhol as kind of a performance art. We could see that in him, that no one else could kind of get the family background of what he was doing. It's almost like a personal, almost like an in-joke. People watching that go, what is going on here? And like we understand the context of it, you know, but no one else can possibly know. Yeah. And since he's not going to let anyone in on that, it's a real mystery.
Though my dad and uncle didn't know Andy personally, my other great uncle, Mike Warner, Andy's cousin, did.
Uncle Mike told me stories that they would rent their neighbor's Buick to drive out to Pittsburgh, and he'd hang out with the other Warhols in Pittsburgh. And that was Andy's family. Uncle Mike wanted to be upwardly mobile, and he found Andy's lifestyle and antics embarrassing. So he changed his last name from Warhol to Warner so that people wouldn't link the two of us.
Pop goes pop artist. The headline said, is shooting a put on? Is Warhol really dead? You get less time for stealing a car.
Andy unfortunately died in 1987 from surgical complications. He was 58 years old.
I remember, because I was in college when Andy Warhol died, and I remember 3 days before he died, I thought he was going to die.
Really?
And I immediately dismissed it. I said, that's crazy. He's young. He's too young to die. Because he was like 53. And then 3 days later...
He was reaching out to you.
3 days later, he died.
See?
So I had a sense...
And
I didn't know him. I had no contact with him, but he was dead.
You had that spiritual bond.
He was dead,
shared.
days later.
People sometimes ask me why no one in my family kept in touch closely with Andy. It's hard to understand the answer to this question if you don't know the true nature of what it means to be a Warhol and what it means to come from the Carpathian Mountains of Eastern Europe.
Slovak hillbillies?
We're third-rate people in a third-rate country or something like that. We're like the bottom of the bottom.
One step above gypsies.
Yeah.
It's this weird Carpatho-Rusin thing, because there is no Slovakia, there is no Rusin. We're a stateless, homeless people with no leader, bound by common traditions and religion, although the traditions aren't common, and neither is the religion.
Vague amorphous cloud of people.
Yeah, who are vaguely kind of sort of... These pierogis, they're pierogi eaters. That's basically it.
Bound by starch.
Yeah, and quite bound up by it. Andy had two brothers, both of whom were dead at this point. It's a scattered family. It's just the way we are. It's like you see these big Italian families, everybody gets together and has a good time. That's not us.
Andy's legacy and influence on pop culture and the art world is almost immeasurable, and I can proudly say that I am related to him. My name is John Warhol, and thanks for listening. And as Andy would say, art is what you can get away with.
Goodbye, Andy.